Alright, what's up? Hi, hello. I'm Dovei, and this is something different, something I would like to call Around the Campfire. If you will look on the Patreon page, you will see that that is a, incentive for a reward tier. And granted that the Patreon is still kind of in a fledgling state, I decided to just kind of forego the need of someone being in that tier to hang out. And also in the spirit of just completely winging it, as I am wont to do, I've decided, given the timing and everything, I'm currently downloading the new expansion, or attempting to rather. I've decided, let's kick off the inaugural, I don't know how that word was butchered in the past. Rar, help me out here. Yeah, so Around the Campfire is sort of like just a podcasty type thing. I'm gonna hang out with friends and we're gonna talk about stuff. That probably would have been way better to start with. Anyway, yeah, starting over. I'm Dovei, we're talking about stuff. Welcome to Around the Campfire. And for June's, given that Shadowbringers is coming out early access in like 7-8 hours-ish, decided let's bring in some friends that I play Final Fantasy XIV with, and we'll talk about our memories of Stormblood. So, I'm going to be introducing some friends. Drakilax, Fang, and Amatsu. And yeah. Hello.
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 Feel free to introduce yourselves and whatnot.
Alright. I'm Fang. Nice to meet you.
I'm Drakilax. You know me.
I'm Amatsu. Hello.
Alright, aces. So, for this, we're just gonna be kind of going over how we felt about the last 2 years of playing Final Fantasy XIV online, A Realm Reborn trademark sign, Heaven's Word registered trademark circle, Stormblood copyright circle. And we're going over like the plot and just how we felt about the game, quality of life, changes, good stuff, bad stuff, stuff we wish, etc., etc. Just the state of the game from our perspectives, more or less. This was the first expansion I dabbled into Savage Raiding, for example. And I think it's Drakilax, this is the first expansion you actually were current on story before the expansion ended, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And Amatsu, we are now just on the data center for the first time. More on that later.
Yeah, we still haven't played together.
Yep. And Fang is a ninja.
That happens sometimes.
So, let's kind of start with the plot. Heaven's okay, so let's kind of not even beat around the bush here. You can't really beat Heaven's Ward in terms of storyline. In my opinion.
The storyline for Heaven's Ward was amazing because I just personally love dragons and super fantasy settings and all that, so I don't think anything's ever really going to top that for me. But,
Yeah.
that's just my opinion.
What were you gonna say, Drakelox?
Yeah, no, that's the thing going off of what Fang said is it's a lot more high fantasy than Stormblood is. I mean, Stormblood's got its good moments, but there's the whole thing in Heavensward with there's the floating continent, there's all the stuff with the dragons, learning about what primals are, everything like that.
Right. So before Stormblood, we had a lot of dragons and religion and war and magic and a lot of it felt very peak classic Final Fantasy to a very good degree. It was pretty very familiar territory in terms of our tastes in games and RPGs and stuff. To go from that to Stormblood, I knew going in it wasn't going to be the same. All the trailers and everything else for Stormblood leading up to kind of pretty much made a dead giveaway this wasn't going to be Heaven's Ward 2. And a lot of people that have criticisms about the game, myself included to a degree, but a lot of people that have just kind of, seem to forget that this isn't Heaven's Ward 2. The biggest sin Stormblood's plot makes is that it's not Heaven's Ward 2. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because you don't want a game to be samey all the time.
Right.
So, we go from dragons and war to a brief touch of Warriors of Darkness to, okay, let's liberate Alamigo because Ilberd, messed everything up royal, so we're just gonna go liberate. And then we start doing that, and we get absolutely destroyed by Xenos in one of my favorite solo instances, of which there are, like, almost all of them, really. We just get absolutely destroyed, and the game actually, in my opinion, commits its first big pacing... Like, Stormblood for me felt really bait and switch. Like, it was led up to by End of Heavensward, and in a lot of the trailers, especially the first FanFest, we're gonna liberate Alamigo. We're going to just completely go in there and wrest Alamigo from Garlemald. And we did for a second, but not really. We got to Rhalgr's got destroyed, and then we went to Doma for about 2/3 of the entire expansion patch quests included.
What was it? Levels 62 to 68 was in Doma?
61 to 67-ish, but yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, and I'm okay with that, but, like, it should have been more foreshadowed that Doma was going to be a huge part of Stormblood in Heavensward, rather than leading into just Alamigo with, like, some hints at Doma here and there. What me and what I'm assuming a lot of people, because my memory is really bad, were expecting was that 4.0 would have been Alamigo, maybe leading into Doma, and then 5.0 on would have been Doma. But it felt like they were just trying to, like, condense that both liberations. And, a two-pronged liberation, it can be a pretty cool story. But it felt like Heavensward was leading in a direction that they had to actually continue to be a natural plot point, but they really, really, really wanted some Eastern fantasy setting. Which is fine, but, like, it felt like a huge bait and switch. We're going to Alamigo! Okay, we're done in Alamigo forever. We're going back there for, like, a minute. So we spend, like, we spend, like, 62 to 67 if we're playing Devil's Advocate. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're spending, like, 60% of the original MSQ in Doma. And it feels like a lot more of the Doman side of things is more fleshed out than the Alamigan side of things.
I agree wholeheartedly, honestly. Like, I really enjoyed the Doma section, but it did feel like it's why are we here kind of moment.
Mm-hmm. Like, the devs wanted us to be there gameplay-wise, but plot-wise it felt like Alamigo was a red herring, which I feel like from... Like, Alamigo was touched on way back in 2.0 something. You visit Little Alamigo and you start hearing of that plight, and it's touched on in a lot of Ul'dah chamber meetings that Alamigo's kind of a big deal. For that to get pushed aside for Doma felt kind of really disingenuous to the plot from a pacing standpoint and from a lore standpoint. Someone else wants to jump in here.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember. Weren't all the primals also Doman ones?
No,
No.
Lakshmi was Alamigan.
Right, Snake Lady.
My least
But
favorite.
they had the
I
majority.
was too.
The one that the NPCs actually know how to fight.
Right?
That solo instance was actually really cool. I did like that.
Oh yeah, I'll be getting into that. It's just, we go to Alamigo because plot demands it, and then we go, like, really early on into Doma and stay there for most of the quest, and that's where, like, a lot of the characterization was actually fleshed out. And Alamigo just kind of... Like, there was a lot of potential in Alamigo that I feel like never got explored, and the worst part is we're never coming back to. Because, plot-wise, we're moving on.
Right, yeah.
But...
Although Lise isn't in charge of,
Lisa's in charge of... Well, she is but isn't. She's, like... She is with Roban.
Yeah.
Like, she's the leader and he's, like, the general or something like that. But it's like... In Doma, we got, like, really an in-depth look on how people were surviving under Imperial rule, especially under Yotsuyu. and, you know, seeing how she kind of commanded the Red Kojin, how some people were just, like, hiding in underwater villages praying to God that the Empire just forgot that they knew that they existed, to the pirates running things in the Ruby Sea with the Ruby Tithe, and we got all this in-depth stuff, and with All Amigo, we kind of didn't get close to that. Like, we got some cool characters that could have gotten a lot more screen time and a lot cooler stuff, but, like, a lot of that was just kind of like heavily like in the shadow of the Doman stuff. And the Doman stuff was really, really cool. Don't get me wrong. But like it felt like it overshadowed a lot of the All Amigan stuff, where All Amigo was kind of actually the reason we were there.
Now the whole thing with everybody with the whole subjugation of Doma, I feel like that was really the main reason why they sent us there, is so they could have an example of somewhere that's like been under Imperial control for so long that they've stopped fighting it, and just like to actually like show off what it's like, what the Garleans are actually doing.
But to be fair, if you look back from 2.0 onwards, like All Amigo had the exact same conditions. They had been under Imperial rule for decades.
But there is a resistance for All Amigo.
There was, yeah, but
I guess what could be said is, on both sides of the world, the resistances and the will of the people have been extremely crushed, to the point where most of them didn't even want to fight until their spirits got raised once again.
Pretty much. You know, Warrior of Light stuff. I feel like overall, I wish we had spent more time in All Amigo and gotten a little bit more of Girabania under the magnifying lens than we did for something that was kind of built up from 2.0, where Doma wasn't until 2.3, I want to say, first mentioned, when Gosetsu first showed up and Yugiri first showed up, and like it was kind of just, you know, more just finding homes for the refugees of Doma than trying to liberate Doma.
Yeah.
Whereas in Stormblood, we get so much of Doma, and like foreshadowing something that's been very prevalent since 2.0, maybe even 1.x, I don't know.
To be fair, the Doma segment is quite enjoyable, though.
It is. It absolutely is. I just wish that the Girabanian side had been just as, you know, detailed.
Yeah, if they had managed to, like, split it 50-50 a bit more. Like, take out one of the, like, take out a Doman map, add in a Girabanian map.
Well, not necessarily map-wise, but just, like, quest-wise, maybe even patch-wise. Like, patch quest-wise, they could have given us a bit more.
That's true.
Because, like, think about it like this. We knew Yotsuyu's full entire backstory. She was a very detailed, in-depth character. And arguably the final boss of, like, the Stormblood part of Stormblood before it started getting into preview Shadowbringers part of Stormblood. Kind of like how Nidhogg was in Heavensward.
True.
Whereas the equivalent for Dola, we know a bit about, but not much. Not to the extent Yotsuyu was. And not just Yotsuyu, we learned, like, all about Yotsuyu, Gosetsu, Yugiri, Hien, and, like, so many people in Doma, whereas the Girabanian side of things, Lise we had already known and met. Roban was, you know, put in All Amigo in Patch Quest, and Fordola was introduced. Even though she was Garlean, she was, like, All Amigan turned Garlean. And there was a lot of other, like, in Doma, like you said, Drakilax, we had a big, giant window into what it was like to live with completely crushed morale just trying to survive under Garlean rule. Whereas in All Amigo, we had because the Empire spent a lot more time there, especially with regards to Magitech Experiment and the Artificial Echo, that we could have seen so much more of. Like, There was a lot of potential there, and there was a resistance. It was two sides of the same coin. One that was trying to kind of scrape together enough to try and fight back, and ultimately not able to really do anything, let alone mount a defense, because as soon as Xenos decided he was walking into Rhalgrs, that was just the end of Rhalgrs.
Yep.
Whereas in Doma, we spent a lot of time... They couldn't even bother, like, trying to fight anymore. It was just getting enough people out to try and eke out a better life and find some spots to hide.
Also, honestly, Xenos... I'd say Xenos is much more of a Alamigo, on the Alamigo side of things, because we only run into him once in Doma.
Yeah, but he's less Alamigan, more Garlean.
Yeah. Oh, you're saying like the whole... I just meant for the whole the equivalent to Yotsuyu.
I wouldn't say Xenos would be equivalent to Yotsuyu, because he was introduced in Alamigo, but it's like he's the Garlean bad guy, not necessarily like an Alamigan side character, because
That's
he's
true.
like just the big bad of 4.0. So, like, he, like, we got Fordola, and Arnvald was cool, but, like, really didn't start showing colors until 4.1. And that was really cool, too. A lot of other side characters got to shine, but for the most part, it felt like Alamigo was a Trojan horse for Doma, in my opinion. Whereas I kind of, as someone who played through all of 2.0, reading everything and doing all the side quests, would have loved more Alamigo.
I think we might be forgetting the greatest villain from Stormblood, though. Good old Captain Name Days.
Yeah, he died in Doma. He was also technically introduced at the end of Heaven's Word, so...
That's fair.
Like, outside of Fordola, I'm hard-pressed to think of a character that was introduced in the Alamigan side of Stormblood that got anything close to character development.
Yeah, I'm honestly not sure there was one.
I cannot think of any either.
Whereas just Doma felt more developed. And, you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I just wish we had, from an entire gigantic, greater scheme of things, picture side of things, could have a bigger window into Alamigo for something that's been that important and touched on and poked at and teased at for so long. Compared to Doma, it feels like a complete reverse. And if Heaven's Word had led into Doma and Alamigo, instead of just, well, we're going to Alamigo, I guess, I would have been a lot more okay with it. I will never let go that Fordola needed more development.
Yeah, no, she was pretty cool. I do wish she got some more development.
How many... Well, Fordola's still alive, so she might
Yeah.
come back in later. Like, they're not just gonna write her out of the plot, especially since she's definitely unique.
But they did forget about her for, like, outside of 4.1, we never saw or heard from her again.
She's also in prison, though.
And?
True.
So was Roban. Like, there was a lot more they could have done with her character, because Yotsuyu got a redemption arc and Fordola did not.
That's true.
Well, she didn't really get redeemed, but she did get thanked for helping save some people. She wasn't forgiven, but she was thanked.
She wasn't forgiven, she was understood. But Yotsuyu, she wasn't redeemed, because Yotsuyu is just not like... She could have been redeemable as Tsuyu, because people were starting to come around to her, but she chose not to. She took Asahi out with her, though, which was really fucking cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, apologies for the swear, but, like, yeah.
Did I just say screw that guy?
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, that's a reasonable opinion.
Alright, so, like, I'm gonna try and stay chronologically linear here, but like, so we go through, like, without being critical and saying more al amigo, please. We go through all the 4.0 stuff. The end of 4.0 was really good. Al amigo as a dungeon at the time was really good. Like, obviously, with the dungeon cycle and it being expert for, like, 2 whole patches was definitely kind of, it wore thin, but thematically as a dungeon, I liked more than ARF, and obviously more than Praetorium, but that's just not a contest. And then immediately into the trial against Shinryu, which was really cool.
Which I need to actually properly do at some point, because I'm pretty sure I spent half of that trial dead.
Everyone did the first couple of times through. Also, with gear levels, it's not much of a fight anymore. Like, it's Thornton all over again. Like, with good gear, you just melt the fight.
That's true.
Like, when it was current, it was really, really, really freaking hard. Like, 4.0, it was a hard fight.
It was better than my first attempt at Sephiroth, though.
Yeah, that's because that is permadeath. Go on, Fang.
Something that I'm looking forward to in Shadowbringers when we do get to it is getting to those fights, like, at whatever point in the story where it's just like, holy shit, this is actually really difficult, and it's like, you're actually gonna have to try and do it.
Yeah.
And just melt it with high level. You're not...
One thing I will say, don't rush the plot, but...
No, I have no intention to.
Well, I mean, like, in general, don't rush the plot, but don't wait 6 months to do it either.
Yeah.
Not naming names. I swear to God, I'm not subtweeting anyone here. I just, you know, like, don't sit on it for patches of content unless IRL happens, but don't necessarily, like, feel the need to do MSQ in, like, a day when early access drops tomorrow. First off, it's not going to be possible. Second off, yeah. But anyway, back on track. We got through 4.0, and we got through the Al Amigo dungeon, and then the Shinryu trial, which was really cool. I have opinions about Shinryu being that kind of trial. I wish, like, because at the end of Heaven's Ward, it was this big thing. Omega and Shinryu fought, and then disappeared. To find out Shinryu was just captured in Al Amigo the whole time felt like kind of a, oh, okay, you're just shoehorning Shinryu in as a final boss, okay. I think what would have been better is if Xenos took out Ralgers, but then Shinryu came along and just destroyed, like, not destroyed it wholesale, but, like, did something to it. Like, maybe Ralgers, like, early Ralgers, I would have foreshadowed Shinryu a lot more. I would have had Xenos and the Imperials come in, be a little bit more even except for Xenos being Xenos, and then have Shinryu finish off Ralgers to an extent. And then, like, have him foreshadowed in the plot that way, because just having him out of nowhere, Shinryu, like, legendary super boss from FF5 on, this big giant thing, is just, oh yeah, he's the final boss, by the way. Like, I mean, cool, good fight, really good music, really good final boss. Just, that should have been more foreshadowed, I think.
Just like Ultima.
Yeah, like, in 2.0, we saw Ultima Weapon eat Garuda. And then, so we knew that was a thing and we were gonna have to fight it. Whereas going through all of 4.0 was like, oh yeah, by the way, that stuff happened. I wonder when they're gonna touch on, oh, okay. Because we knew Omega was gonna be a raid, but we didn't know when Shinryu was gonna be a thing.
Was there something like that in Heaven's Ward? No, Essalon just comes in. They just bring in Essalon at the very end. That's right.
Yeah, they do King Thornton in the Knights of the Round, but they do hint at it a lot. They show the Heaven's Ward transforming, and you fight them in the vault.
Yeah.
So, like, it's pretty obvious that Knights of the Round is going to be the final boss of 2.0. But, like, Stormblood is the first expansion where it's like the final boss was just, like, out of nowhere. Like, we knew it was a thing, but it wasn't hinted at in the plot itself. Like, from 4.0 onward, it wasn't hinted that Shinryu was, like, captured by Xenos out of boredom and that was going to be the final boss, which I just feel like that could have done with a hair more foreshadowing. But,
yeah.
Yeah,
It feels like, in terms of pacing and things like that, they did drop the ball with this expansion.
It felt like the Alamigan side and the Doman side had two teams of riders sometimes.
That might actually be true.
I think I had heard that a few times. I know it, I know I've heard people say that a few times. I don't know if it's, like, officially, like, an actual true thing. But yeah, like, it felt like sometimes just it had two different teams of writers working on two different things that were trying to weave together, which is fine. It's an interesting way to tell a story, but I feel like they should have communicated with each other a little bit more, and there should have been some more things foreshadowed. Also, hooray, my game updated.
Hey.
Like, this whole time, it was actually just downloading at a really good download speed.
Yeah, mine's going at over 10 MB.
Yeah, like, they threw wide the gates.
Oh no.
I'll get to that in a moment. So we have that 4.0, like, you should have been more foreshadowed, but, you know, fine, whatever. 4.1 is probably my favorite, bit of the MSQ ever. Like, it might be my favorite single patch of all of Final Fantasy XIV. Because it starts off with, hey, we liberated Alamigo, and before that we liberated Doma. This Scion comes up to the warrior light's like, hey, you want to go on a random adventure? You want to go spelunking? You want to go explore a cave or a ruin or something? Let's just go adventure. Let's go explore this dungeon without, like, having to, or prevent a curse, or unseal an evil, or stop a tyrant. Now, let's just go exploring. Let's go hunt for treasure. Come on, buddy, let's go. And the warrior light's like, heck yeah, let's do it up.
And then it's sad.
Yeah. But, like,
oh,
you know, it was a sad backstory, but it was an adventure. And, like, I want more of that in FF14. Hell, in, like, any work of fiction, I would like between... Like, it was filler arc, but it was, like, really welcome change of pace of, hey, Warrior Light, you want to go explore stuff? Because, yes. And they're like, sure, let's do it up. I got nothing better to do. I like dungeons. So, a dungeon in we went. And then... Banquet Scene... PTSD number 8972. I love this game, but anytime there's a banquet, every single player and every warrior of light is collectively like, oh god, not again!
Oh no, why?
Because sometimes they go well, and a lot of times they don't, but ever since 2.55, it's like, oh god, no, not another banquet. Can we just, like, chill at my place? I got a place in the Goblet.
And then it's us one time.
Yeah. God. So then we get one of the coolest solos. Stormblood did one thing better than any other part of 14 so far, and that's the solo instances. Did it better than Heavensward, did it way better than ARR. Not that that's hard.
Yeah.
Like, 4.1 solo against Lakshmi, where they first show off their NPC AI, was brilliant. Because at first it was like, wow, I'm actually pretty overpowered because I dabbled in Omega. So it's like, yeah, this is going to be pretty easy for me. And I'm on Red Mage. Solos are free on Red Mage. And, like, yeah, cool. Alright, this is pretty easy. Yeah, it's just a solo against Lakshmi. Hey, cool. Arnivald knows how to dodge AoEs and stuff. And he knows how to stack. Perfect. This is going to be free. They're going to try and temper NPCs. Okay, we just got to intercept. This is going to be easy. And then, like, a minute later is like, oh, dear God. Arnivald, can you get that one? And it was, like, super hectic.
And then we have Tataru.
I'll get to that. And then, like... But it's, like, really cool. It's introducing this AI. Really good, like, making you believe it's going to be the freest solo ever. Because, okay, they have to make these pretty easy, I guess, just in case someone is just, like, not rating or whatever. And then it gets really hectic. You're trying desperately to keep track of, like, all of the stuff Lakshmi's throwing out against all your allies who are in the fight for some dumb reason, who are trying to fight this primal. Just because there are two Scions who can intercept the temper. And then Fortola shows up, and then leaves the story forever. She wasn't even bust, she wasn't killed off, she's just, oh, I helped, I have Echo too, I don't get tempered, your lives are saved, later, nerds.
I'm going back to my jail cell now.
But before that, that PTSD of our reverse echoing her was just... Because, like,
well done.
Fortola needed more because... God, that could have been a really good exploration of a really tragic character who has no choice because of what Magitech was infused into her to see how everyone else feels and thinks about her at all time, and then get hit with what the Warrior of Light has gone through. And just that mind break of, how are you alive?
Because it's necessary.
Because we get paid.
And before that, there was only subtle hints at best, and maybe the Dark Knight questline of just what we as the Warriors of Light are going through.
I hold, in my honest opinion, that the Dark Knight questline is 100% canon to the plot, because there's no other way to explain the psyche of the Warrior of Light without it.
I still need to play through it.
I'm gonna try my best to avoid spoilers of it right now. Just, like, it's... oh my god, just... like, if you ever want...
Dark Knight, I've been working on it.
Okay, so if you want, like, in-depth characterization for the Warrior of Light and their mental state at all, the Dark Knight questline 30 to 50 and 60 to 70 has it in spades, and I'm not gonna say more than that. But to see Fordola get a hit of that by accident, because it's not like we were throwing our echo at her, it was by accident. It was like, you know, Fordola was doing her thing while we got echoes of her vision, and then she got some of ours, and it's like, oh, damn, how do you function? Like, to see someone who was willing to cut us down without a second thought go, do you want a hug or something? Like, you could see in Fordola's face, like, do you want a hug? Do you want to talk about it? Are you okay, mortal enemy who put me in prison forever? Are you alright? Like, dude, you good? And then, like, I'm not gonna go patch by patch, because just, like, it kind of gets muddy for me, because just, I remember 4.1 vividly because of how it starts and because of that solo, and then after that, it's just kind of a blur. And then after that, you know, going back to Doma to settle Doma stuff, because we're done in All Amigo forever. We stopped Lakshmi a second time, whoop-de-doo, All Amigo saved, hooray. And then Doma stuff with Asahi showing up, and it's like...
Ooh.
Yeah, everyone knew from the trailer that Asahi was full of it. He was not a good guy. He was there to mess things up and be Imperial. There was no way that yarn he was spinning about the, you know, about the good Garleans was actually going to be a thing.
But it did seem like that faction actually does exist. It's just they have very, very little power.
The Popularis exists, and Maxima is kind of proof of that, and given what's going on in Garlemald at the end of the expansion is proof of that, but, like, Asahi was absolutely full of it from the get-go. And the end of 4.2, where he does that really creepy lean into our face of, go ahead, strike me down, prove you're a savage, like... I got nothing to prove to you. Yeah, I'm absolutely a savage. You want to go? Like, I'll do it right here in front of everybody and tell everybody what happened, and they'll believe me, and you're screwed, so have fun with your plot. That felt like an oversight, because there's no way we wouldn't have, like, stricken them down, because it's like, Asahi flat out tipped his hand that it was a ruse, and we were playing into Garlemald's hands with this, and it's going to be a trap, and it was.
You know what 14 could benefit from? Some sort of recording device.
I use OBS in the journal.
In character.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, like
sort of,
an echo camera or some shit.
Yeah, it's like the notorious villainous spy starts spilling their plans. Wait, why did you push that button?
Go ahead, strike. Wait, what is that red light? Don't worry about it, emissary. You were saying? It's just part of my glamour. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, blinking lights are normal. Don't worry about it.
Ah, yes, you foolish heroes and your desire for fashion. When I am in charge, I shall rid the world of... Are you sure that's nothing?
Yeah, don't worry about the blinking. And if you hear your own voice, no, it's just I'm really extra with my glamour. Fashion is the true endgame. What is endgame? It's a really cool movie. Don't worry about it anyway. Go on about your evil plan. And then, yeah, Asahi was probably, like, the only character that actually filled their quota of this feels like the appropriate amount of time for this character to exist. Every other character was either not enough or too much.
Yeah.
I mean, Asahi's whole purpose was just to mess with you, then die.
Basically. His goal was to, like, feign peace to bring a bunch of crystals so that a primal is summoned in Doma so that they can see, so that Garlemald could be like, well, we tried peace, but to try and, like, just prove that everything outside of Garlemald was savage or something. It was really just, you know, Elidibus just going, hey, summon a primal in Doma, would you? Throw wide the gates and all that fun stuff.
Ah, good old Elidibus.
Yotsuyu is as much flack as I give Doma being, like, super overdeveloped compared to Alamigo, Yotsuyu is probably the best character out of it.
Yeah.
Like, I love well-written antagonists and villains. Like, bar none in all of fiction. If you can get me to understand your villain, you have written successfully, in my opinion. Not necessarily forgive or empathize with, but if I understand your villain's motivations, you've done something right.
Because you've got to remember that everybody has their own reasons for doing what they do. Nobody is just born, like, with an evil mustache going, I'm going to take over the world.
Xenos was.
Well,
Xenos absolutely was.
Yeah,
Xenos
okay.
was
There are
literally
exceptions.
everybody in the Empire.
Gaius wasn't evil.
That's true.
Gaius was an antagonist with good intentions, but horrible execution and really unfortunate timing and manipulation. Gaius did nothing wrong.
Okay, everybody in, like, at the very top in charge of the Empire.
Gaius was the head of a legatus.
Well, okay, like the whole reason why the Empire was founded, though.
Arguably Varys, but we have to see that play out first.
Oh, I can't wait for that.
Same.
Like, so we get to, like, we had the 4.0 stuff, we had the 4.1 random adventure of randomness, which needs to happen again. Like, please more than once give us more just random adventure filler, because it's really good. Even if Scala wasn't the best dungeon, it was really nice to have a dungeon with literally no stakes.
Yeah, it was actually.
Yep.
But, and then after that, you know, the Tsukuyomi fight to, like, cap off Stormblood as its own story. We cap it off with Tsukuyomi and the end of Yotsuyu's entire character arc, which is one of the most beautiful fights in the game. Is it Nidhogg? No. It's not Final Steps, not even close. But, oh my god, was it a beautiful fight and a really good end to a good character arc and a pretty good end to, like, the Stormblood experience of itself.
That's probably my favorite patch, just for that reason alone, honestly.
The music was really good, thematically it was good. Farming that fight on Extreme was kind of not the best, and I'm gonna segue into a lot of fights. I'm just gonna trail off for like a second before I go back into plot. Like, honestly, some of the fights, the intermissions and ultimate attacks were really cool. I think they shouldn't be in the Extreme versions, because in Extreme, it's cool once for a clear, but when you're trying to farm it, it's just downtime.
Cough, cough, Byakko, cough, cough.
Byakko, Suzaku, it started with Zervan's ultimate back in Heaven's Ward, but that, Lakshmi's ult, Susanoo's intermission and ult, all of the Four Lord fights, pretty much every trial in Stormblood, but Tsukuyomi's was really pronounced because it had that intermission where you're dealing with, which is just a glorified ad phase, and then like, you know, an ult into the third part of the fight, the last part of the fight. And that's cool and all, but I would definitely have those in normal and story modes. But for extremes and savages, I'd probably cut out those intermissions. Because in the Savage raids, you saw those intermissions to the Savage bonus parts of the fight once, and then you were checkpointed. Honestly, for Extremes, I'd either do something like that, or just, like, start at the final phase without that stuff and just incorporate mechanics from the first part. And I know they're not going to do this because it wasn't, like, heavily complained about enough. But for Extremes, if you're trying to mount farm and you have to sit through, like, a 90-second intermission every fight, it gets really tiring. But when you're doing it for MSQ, like Tsukuyomi, which I'm really good at segueing back onto topic, Lamau, it really worked from a narrative standpoint. Like you're fighting this primal you're fighting Primal Yotsuyu in a Garlean castrum, and then you're in her mind, and now you're in her, like, actual primal arena. And from a narrative standpoint, it's really good.
At the very least, they could just, like, shorten it to, like, I don't know, maybe, like, at least half the time that it was in the normal mode. At the very least.
Like, what they could do, like, using Tsukuyomi as an example, like, you just start in the Wayward Daughter part, and it incorporates the mechanics from the first part without the ad phase.
Yeah, I guess that could work.
Like, that's personally how I would handle it, just for Extremes only. Normal can stay the full cinematic narrative experience because it's a story mode run.
Yeah.
But, like, for Extremes, like, and most Extremes, Savage was pretty good about avoiding it for the most part, but, like, a lot of Extreme trials and primals and stuff, like, if you're farming mounts, it gets old pretty fast to sit through that 90-second, especially when the fight is pretty mindless. Like, you have all the mechanics down, it's just farming it just kind of gets old after a minute. Not like, you know, oh my god, this is the worst thing ever, I hate life kind of old, but, like, you know, it's just 90 seconds of downtime per run. It de-incentivizes people getting through it.
Yeah.
And then, past Tsukuyomi plot-wise, we get to the quote-unquote foreshadowing of Shadowbringers, and it's where I start having the biggest issue with the pacing of Stormblood. Stormblood did not do enough to lead into Shadowbringers. Like, it had a good ending, but I feel like Stormblood didn't really do enough to lead into Shadowbringers. We got some, like, vague bad stuff happening, our allies are being called, and, you know, we learn why, and then we just kind of end with, go to the Crystal Tower, I have something for you there, and then it ends there. Like, as Final Fantasy XIV has gone on, the endings to each expansion have been less and less. Like,
Yeah.
ARR's ending goes out with a bang. It goes out with a massive nuclear explosion of events. Nanamo, you know, appears dead. All the Scions go down just trying to get you out. And it's just you, Tataru, and Alpha Node. Like, well, let's go see if Ishgard will take us in, because we're kind of wanting criminals in all of Eorzea now. Well, heck. Sucks for us. All our friends are dead. Ulda's dead. And we're gonna be hunted down by the army we built up. Well,
Shoot.
yeah. And then Heavensward ended with, oh wow, someone summoned an actual, like, primal that Papalimo had to do the Louis Suave thing. Which is really sad, but as soon as I saw him get to Tupsamati, I was like, yeah, no, he's that's how he's gonna go out. But it's like, it ended with that.
Slowed it down.
Yeah, and that only, well, the same thing when Louis Suave tried to do it to Bahamut, only actually lasted a little bit longer. And then Heavensward ended with, you know, Shinryu being summoned, Shinryu versus Omega, and then kind of a, okay, well, this stuff happened, let's go liberate All Amigo, yay! Warriors of Darkness didn't really last all that long, did it? Cool. And then Stormblood ends, basically, like, the beginning of Shadowbringers is gonna feel like patch 4.57, or 4.6.
Yeah, it basically ended on a massive cliffhanger that, like, at the end of an expansion, usually things felt resolved, but in this case, it really doesn't feel all that resolved right this second.
Like, those of us that have watched the trailers know what's gonna happen and where we're gonna go. But from a pure, just complete packaged narrative standpoint, Stormblood didn't really end.
It's just like, well, everybody's unconscious.
Sid's got something for us. Eh.
Well, it isn't Sid has something for us. It's Crystal Guy has left something for us at the Crystal Tower.
Oh, right, yeah, Crystal Guy. Oh, yeah, I wanted to log out in front of Crystal Tower. Damn it.
I logged out in the Waking Sands.
Sam.
Where did I log in?
Or no, not
Oh, Rising Stones. Rising Stones,
Yeah.
that's it.
I don't know
logged
where
out
I
in,
am.
In the inn at Gridania because I was gonna do Gunbreaker first, probably.
Oh, is Gunbreaker at Gridania?
Yeah, Gunbreaker's at Gridania.
Where's Dancer?
Limsa.
Limsa, okay, cool.
Why
Okay.
is Gunbreaker there?
Actually, yeah, why aren't those two switched around?
Yeah, honestly.
Dancer makes sense for Ul'dah, honestly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
but we
Ul'dah
have
got
two
the last
expansion
two jobs.
Yeah. You know, Ul'dah, where literally everything happens and everybody is fine, asterisk.
I just, from a plot standpoint, Stormblood didn't... Stormblood's pacing from start to finish was very odd choice.
Yeah.
Like, we like, from the complete package, we have the Alamigan red herring leading us into Doma for about 60%, being generous with that. 60% of the entire expansion took place centered around Doma. And I'm being extremely generous when I say it's probably closer to like 67 or 70%. Like, it was a Doman expansion, and Alamigo felt like a red herring. A lot of pacing back and forth. A lot of characters didn't stay dead, kind of really removed a lot of the emotional punch of certain character deaths. Because, like, the 57 dungeon in Heavensward led to the most poignant character death in all of FF14. And the 67 led to 2 deaths, but not really. A lot of characters died, but not really, in Stormblood. And it felt kind of a little cheap.
To be fair, a lot of characters have died, but not really throughout the course of the game.
Kind of?
But at the same time, there's been quite a few deaths that stuck, too.
Yeah.
The only exception that comes to mind pre-Stormblood is Nanamo.
Literally the entire banquet.
Oh, I mean, yeah, the Scions, but, like, you know... It was just assumed they were dead in all the chaos. We never actually saw them die. Like, it was just kind of assumed they died getting us out, but there was nothing to really suggest they died like Nanamo.
And some NPCs commented that they never found the bodies.
Mm-hmm. Like,
That's
that could have gone either way, but, like, compared to Stormblood, Yustola getting, like, Xenosed, and she got better. Gosetsu and Yotsuyu getting crushed under a burning, breaking, crumbling castle, going underwater, and probably... They're like, yeah, we didn't find the bodies, but let's be real.
Okay, to be fair, Gosetsu is completely and utterly badass, though.
Yes, so is Horsefant.
Eh.
Well,
So is Papa Limo. Like, there were a lot of characters that were, like, really badass that just didn't get DBZ treatment. It just felt like more per capita in Stormblood of death fake-outs than the rest of the series. And it just kind of felt like removing the punch of character deaths compared to FF14, like, before that. There were a lot of characters' deaths that stuck versus... Not really in Stormblood. Yotsuyu eventually. And that's about it, really. Hell, not even Xenos. Now he died so hard, he fake died so hard, we now have 2 of him.
Okay, no, to be fair,
Underflowed.
Xenos did actually die, but shenanigans.
Elidibus is in
better.
his body, and Xenos is running around in a Resistance member's body.
Somehow.
Was it actually confirmed that's Elidibus?
If you listen to the end scene with that Resistance soldier, the way he talks and his voice, it's a dead giveaway.
Okay.
It's not, like, confirmed, but that Resistance soldier is real Xenos.
No, I meant with it being specifically Elidibus in Xenos.
Oh, yeah, that was
Yeah.
straight up confirmed.
Okay.
Like, during that last solo in 4.56 where you fight against Xenos, he's using, Asian magic, and definitely identifies himself as Elidibus. Not by name, but, like, yeah, it's Elidibus in Xenos' body. They say it at some point.
I think he opens up with, like, double, which the last time you fought an Ascian also basically opened with double.
He opens up with triple and then spark,
triple.
and then uses, Xenos used lightless spark, which is basically just a Garlean sword tech. But he uses legitimate spark, and he uses Dark Blight, which was La Habrea's thing. Spark was, Nabrialis' thing. Double and triple casting spark was Nabrialis. Dark Blight is La Habrea's. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And considering that Elidibus is the de facto leader of the Ascians, so...
I get some Revolver Ocelot vibes from Elidibus, if I can be honest.
Well, he's Zodiark's messenger. That's the thing.
He's an emissary, but, like, he's a white-robed Ascian. That sets him apart from the others as it is. The other Ascians don't really take to Elidibus all that much. Like, it's kind of a mix of, like, what the Ascians are trying to bring back their one true god. And then we get the E3 trailer from Emmett Selch.
I haven't seen the E3 trailer yet.
Okay, I'm not gonna say what happened, but, like, you should do that after we're done here. Like,
Okay.
it's a huge bombshell drop, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Wait. Oh, wait. I think I know. That's the one where that's the one where it starts out with the Dark Knight, right?
I think?
Or
No, I'm not talking about the fight with the innocent. There was an E3 trailer where they went over some stuff and ended with Solus giving a speech and dropping a bombshell.
yeah.
I know what.
Okay, yeah, I do remember that.
Okay, so it's like they're trying to summon Zodiark, but at the same time, Zodiark and Hydaelyn are allegedly primals.
Yeah. Well, isn't
Yeah.
Zodiark also the moon?
Something like that.
Because Hydaelyn said Zodiark was turned, Zodiark's body was turned into the moon.
I don't remember that, but it has been a while, so you might be right.
I'd have to dig around. Like, they've showed Zodiark's crystal form, and they've showed Zodiark's, like, not crystal form in-game a couple times.
Yeah, supposedly, according to Hydaelyn, his desire for power broke the balance and he was banished to the heavens as a lunar body.
According to Hydaelyn.
According to Hydaelyn.
Now
Then
that's
again,
in doubt.
everything she says could have been a lie.
Yeah.
We're tempered. Hooray!
We were tempered. Midgard
We were
Sormer untempered us.
Yeah. But the
Somehow.
other scions, however.
And then we
Oh.
retempered ourselves, kind of, by getting those crystals again. And then, going to the first, we're probably just going to be outside her sphere of control. That's going to be fun.
To be fair, it was more that Midgard Sommer wanted to strengthen the crystals because they weren't powerful enough to defeat Nassian before.
Well, that's not why he did it. He was upholding his bargain with Hydaelyn by, you know, helping us reform our own bond that was stronger, but it wasn't to defeat the Ascians.
Oh, okay. Well, it was for some reason he couldn't.
It was for some reason. He said something about upkeeping his bargain or something. But, like... And also, keep in mind, we got that bombshell about Hydaelyn and Zodiark being Ascians from... Or, primals from an Ascian, from Emmett Selch.
That's true.
So, that could also be a lie.
It could.
Sorry, Fang, you were saying something?
I was just saying that the patch finally downloaded for me.
Oh, nice.
Excellent. It was also done for me, I believe.
No, it's done for me as well.
Neat.
Now to wait.
Now to wait until, like, tomorrow.
See, this makes me want to just go through the story.
I'm really tempted to go through on Dark Knight. I love Red Mage dearly, but if Dark Knight is, like, half fun to play, like, it'll be like my first expansion, actually, like, main tanking through an expansion. Be really nice. Of course, I need to gear... I forgot to gear up my tank, so I'll just have to, like, use store-bought 395.
That means I'll have to bring up a DPS if I want to also play with you for dungeons.
I'm gonna go at my own pace, but I will replay stuff.
That's true.
But, yeah. Anyway, back on topic. So we pretty much are pretty settled with the plot. It had flaws in its pacing. It wasn't the worst, I feel like plot-wise it was stronger than ARR in a lot of ways. Definitely not as good as Heavensward, but like, you can't really do that. Like, I'm pretty hard-pressed to find anything in FF14 outside of the Dark Knight questline that was as good plot-wise as Heavensward.
And if you want to be technical, a good chunk of the Dark Knight questline is Heavensward, because that's when we got the class.
I mean, yes and no. Like, 30 to 50 was very definitively ARR. Like, I know we got it in Heavensward from a Heavensward location, but a lot of that was, like, ARR therapy.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Like, it was messily paced, but I don't think it's, like, objectively bad. I think it was a little bit messy with the alleged 2 writing teams and how we got to certain events. Like, it was very clear they wanted they wanted to lead us to certain events, but it wasn't really well orchestrated on getting there in a reasonable pace, in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel the same. Like, they could have done much better with the pacing, but I can't really think of any ways they could have maintained this whole fighting in 2 locations plot effectively they had going.
Yeah, because it's not like we could just reasonably... I mean, we can teleport in canon, but it's not necessarily, you know, reasonable for us to have gone back and forth a lot. I just wish we'd had more Alamigo time and Alamigo characterization is all.
Speaking of Shadowbringers and plot and whatnot, I'm just curious. Who do you think is what summons or who do you think is bleh. What do you think is going to show up as Primal in Shadowbringers
Besides Titania?
besides Titania?
I don't know. I don't know if the other one was confirmed or not. I'm kind of like lacking in my Shadowbringers trailer lore. I know Titania is one, and I know Eden is the 8-person raid, and I think Nomura's in charge of that raid, which is gonna be interesting.
But the real question is because with so far with both expansions being so far with every expansion having some really like iconic or just like god tier summon or creature from a previous Final Fantasy game as the final boss. What the who do you think might be like the final boss?
I don't think we're gonna get an iconic summon as that because we're running out.
There's still a few, but yeah.
I can't think of any, like, previous Final Fantasy that would be, like, a god tier summon in the realm of Ultima Weapon, Knights of the Round, and Shinryu. I think, I mean...
Maybe
unless we go Seraphim from 6, but... Sorry, Fang, what was that?
Maybe they just pull Final Fantasy IX and pull whatever that boss from 9 was out and just like, here you go.
What, Arc?
Yeah.
Arc was Cruise Chaser in A11.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was already done, unfortunately.
Sad to say.
Well, yeah, or just not even as primals. Like, what? Who do you think is going to just show up in Shadowbringers? Be it like a dungeon boss or anything like that?
We're running so low on those at this point that they're gonna have to pull from side games and make stuff up. Like, we're gonna see a lot more Ravana tier summons, which, to be honest, is far from a bad thing. Ravana fits in so well that I was in extreme denial when I first got through Heavensward. I was like, no, that's obviously a Final Fantasy summon from, like, one of the Game Boy games or something. And let me go look. And then, like, everything's like, nope, created for 14. Ravana fits in so well that it's hard-pressed to, you know... Like, I spent so much time trying to find any trace of Ravana in any other Final Fantasy, and it was just, nope. Just completely original summon, do not steal.
Well, yeah, no, Ravana is obviously Estark from Dragon Quest.
That's still not a Final Fantasy.
I know. I mean, he very much is, design-wise. He's a giant four-armed beetle man with swords.
Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, without saying which one is which, if you're a hardcore fan of one and are compared to something from the other, is like asking if Pepsi's okay.
That's fair.
Like, I'm not saying which one's Coke or Pepsi in this case.
You know who we haven't seen? The one Esper in the ice from the start of 6.
Valgarmanda? No, we haven't seen, but I wouldn't count that as, like, god tier. You're right, we haven't seen, but...
Oh, well, not even as god tier, just, like, as a thing we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, we have not seen Valgarmanda. We haven't seen Golem, technically. We've seen various golems, but we haven't seen the summon golem as, like, a thing. Same with the brothers, same with Pandemonium, Quetzalcoatl.
Have Mega Sisters shown up?
No. We have seen Calcabrina, though.
Yeah.
I wish we hadn't.
Yeah, I wish we hadn't either.
I don't like Calcabrina.
But,
How we've seen very little 10 content.
well, we've seen Yojimbo. We haven't seen Valifer, but the name has come up as, like, a fake primal that these Lalafell used to get out of being arrested.
And it was in Crystal Tower.
It was just a side quest in Mordona. It wasn't actually Crystal Tower. Technically, there was an enemy called Valifer in Crystal Tower, though. But that was just a normal trash mob. That does not count. Most of the evil Elysian summons have been seen at this point. Either
there is a
in...
Ravana in Vagrant story, but they're completely different.
Yeah, that's different. Susano is technically original, but Susano was in Bravely Default, which is a spin-off, or a spiritual successor to a Final Fantasy spin-off, so I'm going to go ahead and count that. It's basically a Final Fantasy. Well, it's not technically a Final Fantasy. It's Bravely Default. It's its own thing. It literally is just... It's a turn... Like, if that had been called Final Fantasy IV Heroes of Light 2, no one would have batted an eye.
You know what we haven't got, though, a lot of is, stuff from 12, / Tactics.
We got a lot of those.
Did we have one?
Cuchulainn was in Weeping City, and Mateus, Hashmal. Okay, let me look these up because like we've gotten most of the Lucavi / 12 Espers in the Evil East raid as it is.
That's fair.
We've gotten a lot of them.
That's fair. And Zodiark is supposedly the big bad.
Yeah. Well,
But we
at this
haven't
point,
we haven't seen Ultima, like actual Ultima.
yeah, final boss of Orban.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry to spoil, but yeah.
Well.
Well,
Oh, yeah, duh. If the whole thing takes place inside Ridorana.
Not Ridorana, but the first one was Rabanastre, the second one was the lighthouse at Ridorana from 12, and the third is the Orbana Monastery.
Oh, okay.
I'm not gonna spoil the other 3 bosses, they're really good, but yeah.
That's fair.
Let's see. Bellius was in Ridorana. We haven't seen Chaos, but like the Esper 12 Chaos, but Chaos FF1 was 09, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Zalara I don't think we've seen. Zeromus we haven't seen. Hashmal was in Rabanastre. Ultima's in Orban. Exodus we haven't seen, but X-Death is 04. Cuchulainn was in one of the mock raids. Shemhazai we have not seen. Adramelech I am surprised we haven't seen in Evil East somewhere. And Famfrit and Mateus we've seen.
Yeah.
And Zodiark being like one of the big bats.
Has Zeromus showed up yet?
No.
Might be Zeromus. Somewhere.
I doubt that. Like, Zerome, like, some of the 12 Espers were just obvious callbacks to, like, Final Fantasy final bosses that it would seem a little disingenuous to add them. They'd feel shoehorned in as Shadowbringer's final boss, or, like, just somewhere. Like, Zeromus could show up, but I doubt it's gonna be, like, anything plot relevant. Like, Cuchulainn being shoehorned into a mock raid really upset me anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, what about Ragnarok?
Ragnarok wasn't a summon.
Yeah,
Yes, he was.
in 6 and 13.
Oh, yeah, and 6 kind of, and 13 more of a plot point than a summon.
6, you just pick the sword 99% of the time anyway.
You pick the sword if you're playing on the SNES version. On any other remake version, you can steal the sword in the final battle. There's no reason to take the sword.
That's the final battle, so what's the point?
Because in the remakes, you save after the final battle.
Oh yeah, you do, don't you?
Like, you can technically steal it in the final battle in the SNES version too, but, like, there's no point. So it's arguable in the SNES version, but the GBA version and the mobile version, there's no reason to take the sword.
Could you swap gear in the middle of battle in the
Yes.
original version? Oh, okay. So
But the main reason to
tiny,
take the
tiny-
sword in FF6 in the first place is to bring it to the Colosseum to get the better sword.
Yeah.
irony.
Yeah. I usually just take the Magicite anyway.
Well, I was about to suggest maybe something from 15, but I just looked at the Esper list for the thing list for 15, and that's just the standard elemental ones.
Yeah, it's the same
Yeah.
game as any other game.
Pretty much. Other than other forms of Bahamut coming back, Seraphim from 6 seems pretty likely thematically speaking. Maybe if there was something from 11. I'm getting a lot of Chains of Promethea vibes from Shadowbringers, honestly, like from the direction the main plot's taking us here.
I wonder if there's going to be a big dragon baddie this expansion, because we had Bahamut in 2.0, we had Nidhogg in 3.0, and then we had Shinryu in 4.0.
We are still missing 2 of the first brood, technically.
We also haven't had Neo Bahamut or Bahamut Zero.
Yeah, but I don't see that being like a big plot point.
That would be really lazy if they did that, honestly.
Unless it was like a raid or just a Savage thing or an ultimate or something.
Yeah.
I don't see that ever being a plot point. We're missing Azdaha and Vertra from the first brood still, technically. Because we've
But they
seen...
might be dead for all we know.
They could be. Ratatoskr was dead, though. Look how important she turned out to be. Getting back on topic, speaking of things that were kind of oddly paced, the Omega Raids. I've been wanting to rant about this for a while. I love the Omega Raids. I love fan service in FF14. It was just very odd for an 8-person raid to have an FF5 tier, an FF6 tier, and then 114 and then Omega twice. Just felt very weird to have just 2 specific games when it was the Interdimensional Rift.
Yeah.
Like, I would have gone Dissidia instead of a specific Final Fantasy and pulled a bunch of final bosses.
Actually, yeah, just like the final boss of each, like the final bosses of 1 through 13, skipping 11.
Yes and no. Like,
Or
I wouldn't necessarily be like that black and white about it, because Mateus the Esper, the Evilisian Esper, was in the Evilis raids, and that was very, very based on the Emperor from FF2.
okay.
Chaos was 09. Cloud of Darkness was already, the final boss of World of Darkness. So you could have Chaos, Zeromus, Exdeath, Kefka, Sephiroth or Genova to some extent, Ultimecia, Kuja or Necron. Kuja, because Necron was just a space flea out of nowhere.
Sin could have been a fun fight, or
BF
or whatever.
Well, Sin itself would have been a fun raid. I feel like Sin would have been more of a raid tier than a raid.
I had meant Final Aeon.
BFA would have been really cool. You could have pulled something from 11. Vayne, I don't know that I would add. Like, see, what from 12 would we add to the Omega raid that wouldn't be an Evilis?
That's true.
And then 13, let's just skip because Orphan is weird.
I still should play 13 just to say that I've like beaten 13.
Yeah, honestly. I kind of
And
want to play it again,
honestly,
but
From
I
what
really
it's. Oh, sorry.
I was just saying I really should get back to playing the rest of the Final Fantasies because I own them, but I still haven't beaten them.
go on, Drakilax.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's honestly not a bad RPG from what I've played of it. It's just not a good Final Fantasy.
That's how I feel about 13. It's not a good Final Fantasy. It's not a good numbered Final Fantasy at all. But I don't go as far as to say it's an objectively bad game, because there are other RPGs that are linear that people don't despise like they do 13. So it's like, it feels a little hypocritical to say 13 is a bad game, but like some other not Final Fantasy RPGs that are just as linear. Go on. Go on, Amatsu.
Oh, right.
What were you saying?
There are games that are worse than it as well, that are also RPGs.
Yeah. It's just because 13 is a numbered Final Fantasy, it gets so much hate. Whereas if it had been a Final Fantasy spin-off, if it had started like, if it were just called Final Fantasy Nova Crystallis, and they'd built that whole, all the eggs in that basket as just that, and not BFF13, it wouldn't have been as reviled. I guarantee if it didn't have 13 in the name, it wouldn't have been hated to the degree that it was. But, yeah. Just, it was so weird going back on topic. The Omega raids being 5, 6, and 1/14. Like, they should have mixed it up a bit more, I think. With other Final Fantasy bosses, or even characters. Like, they teased at the end of Deltascape, possibly pulling heroes as well as villains. So it's like we could have fought some Final Fantasy characters.
That's true, yeah.
Like, Terra would have been an absolute fun 08. Because then the bonus would have been her in Esper form.
Of course, it would have been Cloud. Because, you know.
Cloud doesn't have an alternate form like Terra does.
I meant just like Cloud would have been in there somewhere.
Well, yeah. Probably would have been Cecil, maybe Bart's, Cloud, and Terra.
Maybe
Like,
Lightning.
Maybe Lightning, yeah. Not Noctis, because the crossover hadn't happened yet, but yeah. Like, I wish they'd pulled from more than just 2 Final Fantasies for the first 2 tiers. Like, the Exdeath and Kefka, and subsequently Neo Exdeath and God Kefka fights were really good. But, like, they shouldn't necessarily have been the entire tier. Like, the fights were really cool, except 07 can just step on a Lego. Like, 07 is just not good. Like, normal was fine, but Savage, 07S was just awful. Oh my god, did I hate every second of 07S.
Oh shoot, what was 07 again?
Guardian.
Oh, yeah.
The invincible robot from FO6.
Yeah. You know what would have been cool as a tier? Going by the heroes thing, not just one hero, but like just a bunch of other protagonists, and they're like they're all not like boss tier, but it's like just essentially an endurance thing.
They did that in Alexander, and it was one of the static killers.
Ah, okay.
Like, I think it was 06S was a 4-boss mini-boss rush, and on normal you got checkpointed, on Savage you did not.
Ooh.
So, yeah, that sounds cool, but they tried that once, and it was very, 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 very soundly rejected. So, I mean, that would have been cool, but like, but heroes, maybe instead of individual characters, just have parties. Like, you fight an FF5 party, an FF6 party, and so on.
Yeah, that's more what I meant.
That could have been cool. Not an endurance thing, but like...
Oh, sorry.
Not an endurance thing, but like, you know, 8 on 4, 8 on 3, 8 on 8, something like that would have been... Like, I would have liked the Omega raids to be more Dissidia than just FF5 and 6. I just felt it was such an oddly specific laser-guided fan service. Which was cool to me, but like, the FF5 raids were better than the FF6 raids, which makes me really sad.
Oh, the real question is, where's the Pectologia crossover?
Moving on. And then the Evilise raids were really cool, but I felt like Rabanastre was a really good raid. Ridorana was alright. And then the last one was like really, really good, but just I don't know, like it felt messy. Like they had said pre-Stormblood that you would be able to follow it without having played Tactics or 12, and honestly, from someone who has played both games, not really. That's one of those that it's pretty fan servicey, but you get a lot more of if you've played Tactics, especially Tactics and 12. Yeah. So that was kind of unfortunate. It felt like a lot of the raids were definitely fan service, and unfortunately for Shadowbringers, I'm sensing a lot of that too, because Nier Automata Alliance raid, and I'm gonna have to play that before 5.1 drops.
It's definitely worth it. Fantastic game. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, it's just gonna be sad that I'm gonna have to be rushed to play it to understand it.
Yeah.
To understand an Alliance raid. That's gonna be unfortunate. It felt like there was a lot of fan service, which was cool to me because FF14 does fan service well, but from the perspective of people that haven't played all the Final Fantasies, haven't played the ones that the raids were about, didn't play Tactics or 12, even though I highly recommend, but they're not everyone's cup of tea, to understand a raid just felt Halo 5-y. And by that I mean, to understand the campaign of Halo 5, you have to have read the novels, so... That's just kind of... Like, it was really cool to me, but I've been a Final Fantasy nerd for a quarter century now. And, like, combined with the... Like, Stormblood, ultimately, I feel at the end of the day, is just... was fun, was really good, and did a lot of things right, but was ultimately a mess. And not like an irredeemable, awful mess, but I think is a mess. What do you all think?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have much to really say about it because honestly, like, you know, I joined at Stormblood, so like I was really just more concerned about like getting caught up more than anything.
That's one piece of advice I would give to any new player, especially someone who's like connected to me in some way. Don't rush to catch up, and don't feel like you're a burden for asking us for help with low-level stuff, because I don't mind, honestly.
Yeah, I think anyone here would be glad to help out if they can do so.
Yeah.
Well, I need to farm Totorock for crafting mats.
No, you don't. You're caught up. No, you don't. But yeah, they're like mostly plot-wise, writing standpoint, and design-wise, it felt almost rushed. It had that feeling of just there were a lot of finer details in certain aspects that were left out. Four Lords felt really good though. I don't remember much of the plot of it, but like just design-wise, that was a really good side quest set of trials.
Was Gur angry? Gotta fight the Four Lords to make them less Gur angry.
Well, angry, depressed, nihilistic in that order, but yeah.
Yeah.
Just thematically, musically, really good set of trials, which was a really good compliment to Heavensward's Warring Triad.
Also, where there was the one samurai guy who was probably a previous warrior of light.
Possibly.
And that one being that is apparently way stronger than the other four lords and us. And it's just like, oh no, it's gonna kill us all. And then we're just like, not today. And then, yeah, we'll deal with it later. Basically is how that concluded.
Yeah, I mean, you don't. I mean, for stuff like that, for the side quests with the trials, you don't go in for the plot.
Yeah, that's fair.
Also, Tataru during that solo instance.
Yeah, Tataru, like, okay, so in 4.1 we got, like, the Lakshmi solo instance where we showed off this really cool AI mechanic where the AI know what they're doing. And then in 4.2, we get a solo instance where the AI shows off that it doesn't know what it's doing at all. And it's like, that was a call out to, like, half of the player base. See these markers? This is you. Don't do this because you kill other people.
Setting people on fire is bad.
Tataru, I love you, dear, but you gotta not.
Please stay out of battles forever, Tataru.
Yeah.
You're a precious cinnamon bun. You are not meant for battles.
Just do the Scion's taxes. That's all you need to do.
Yell at us about money because you are an absolute demon goddess at money. But please don't bring out the book again. Carbuncle does not like you.
You know, between Tataru Extreme and Chocobo Savage, I'm impressed with the bonus content we got in that patch.
Technically, Chocobo Savage was 4.1.
Red Chocobo was probably my favorite part about the raids.
The Alliance raids had the biggest problem of too much stuff to do to unlock the raid. Where they could have probably fit in some of that fetch quest cutscene stuff in between patches. Like, they could have had us do all of that pre-prep stuff. Like, okay, 4.1, we had the Red Chocobo stuff and unlock Rabanester. 4.2 could have been, like, cutscene, fetch quest, wine and cheese party. And then 4.3, just go to Ritterana. And then, you know, there's like an hour of quest and cutscene before the Urbana Monastery.
Yeah,
that was actually like the first one that I actually skipped cutscenes because people were waiting on me, and I'm just like, I'm sorry, but I hadn't watched these yet, and it was so much like plot that I just didn't understand because I haven't played any of the tactics games or really 12 all that much. I played a little bit of 12, but not really. So, like, I didn't really understand at all what was going on, so plot just meant nothing to me. So I just skipped it.
And, like, I could go into the comparison of FF14's Evilise versus FF Tactics' actual plot. And it's like, it's very clearly not real canon Evilise, because there's way too many contradictions for that. But from what we got of, like, Eorzean Evilise was not bad. But it's one of those things, again, you kind of really don't appreciate without having played Tactics, because, like, the bosses, the equipment, the everything was Tactics 12 and Tactics in that order. So, and it's kind of unfortunate. And then with all the stuff having to do, like, that just kind of, I chalk that up to pacing again. Like, I really hope that for Shadowbringers, we get better pacing. And not just a chain of events that need to happen. We're very clearly pushing you this direction. Like, I would like the plot to play out a little more naturally, and that's pretty much my hope.
Yeah.
I feel personally, ironically, that the plot for Shadowbringers is going to be a bit darker.
I mean, I personally love dark plots. Anything that's like, you know, dark and depressing and stuff, I just love it. But, you know, that's just me.
I
So I'm
don't.
kind of hoping, but, you know.
Grimdark's not my cup of tea personally, but I'm playing a Final Fantasy, so I know what I signed up for.
Yeah. Like, obviously I don't want, like, super grim, dark stuff all the time, but when I do see it, I really enjoy it.
Yeah. For me, this was my first, like, full expansion, because I started playing in 3.1, like, a week before 3.2 dropped. That was when I started the game. So, like, all the stuff that was, like, raids and extremes and stuff, I felt was, like, super beyond me. And then in Stormblood, I actually delved into, had a static for, Delta and Sigmascape, and was really fun. And it's like, I finally feel like I got better at the game, but I also chalk that up to Red Mage being a good job to play. And, you know, like, it was first like, this is super mega impossible like I watched Miztek's guide on coils, and it's like, wow, this is all like way too beyond me. How do people do this, etc. And then I get into Stormblood, like years later, and it's like, oh, okay, you just it's actually not as high pressure as I thought. Of course, the floor was lowered by leaps and bounds for Stormblood compared to Heavensward and especially ARR. And it just felt like raiding was more accessible. A lot of people complain that, you know, raiding was too accessible now, but it's like, I feel like it should be. I feel like the difficulty of things, normal raids could probably be a step harder. Just a little tiny bit maybe, because they're raids. But I think the difficulty of that compared to Savage is pretty hard. I like raids being more accessible, especially Savage being as accessible as it was. Like, O1S is not even a hard fight. It's the same fight with slightly less tails and no rails, and it's really easy. It was super easy when it was current. Whereas, you know, the other fights gradually got harder, I guess, but like, I don't know, it felt very easy to get into. I hope they kind of keep that to an extent for Shadowbringers. Like, kind of keep the low floor. I think the last thing I want to go over on the topic of Stormblood, because I don't know if I'm forgetting anything at this point, but the last thing I want to go into is ultimate raids. Before I go into my rant, how do people feel about the ultimate raids, the two that we got?
I didn't do either of them. But,
Obviously. None of us
I
did.
don't think none of us.
I think it's good that they added like another tier of raids for the higher end players who have done everything.
Yeah, I definitely think that's pretty cool.
Especially since they're supposedly going to keep it so that you have to be synced for them.
Yeah, you are never going to be able to unsync the ultimate raids.
Right, so that way there's always a challenge for players who like, oh, I've done every Savage raid, I know all the mechanics, this isn't hard anymore. Bam! Ultimate. The fact that each one is essentially the fact that each one so far has been like essentially a puzzle as well has been pretty cool, because it's not obvious about the what the mechanics do, how to actually properly avoid the not die.
Ukob didn't have that as much.
Did it not?
No, like that was Uwu. Like, Ukob was just basically T5, T9, T13 with some bonus stuff added. And it was just really hard, and the mechanics were really kind of tricky to like learn how to do properly while doing everything else that was going on at the same time properly. Arguably, Ukob is a harder fight. Uwu was fun to watch because of the reverse prog. 'Cause it's like, people were like downing the primals really easily, getting to La Habrea and just like insta-gibbing and not knowing what to do, until they figured out, oh, we gotta do the awakening thing that we've been avoiding this whole time, and then starting over again. And that was an intentional design choice, and I think it was brilliant. Ultimate raiding is a brilliant thing in this game that needs to exist. And it needs to exist for the highest of high-tier players, but it's good for the game outside of that as well, because it has a lot of draw on Twitch, is very entertaining to watch. It's a world-first race that lasts more than, like, 48 hours. It lasts, like, I think UCOB was a week, 11 days, something like that. It was a while. And, Ooze was a while, too. Like, it's good for the game to have a brass ring that most people aren't going to necessarily get. Because it's very viewer-invested as well, like... I feel like it's just ultimately just really good for the game to have something that high-end. And I'm really sad we didn't get a third one.
And it's nice for players such as myself who like want to get to the point where they can try it someday.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And even if like I may not ever actually get to that, it is nice to like have a goal set to like try to improve myself so that I can maybe do that someday.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if I don't get to it, it does make just the rest of the game more enjoyable because it pushes me to improve, which is always a good thing.
Like, savage raiding isn't this big scary thing if you have a good group of people. Like, if you pug it, it's an absolute, pardon my friends, it's an absolute shit show if you run it with randos. But if you have a group of friends, even like mostly a group of friends, and some people you know that are pretty cool, and like it's still, there are some stressful days. I had a really good static, like a really, really good static of really good friends. And there are some days that were just absolutely, like, completely stressful. But, like, it was still ultimately, at the end of the day, a net positive. It was fun to learn. It was like, really rewarding to actually beat some of those harder fights. Like, the first O3S clear, I screamed. It was so fun. Super rewarding. And I think that sort of thing is a lot more accessible the more the game goes on, the more, people that have been around, not from the beginning, but like people that joined in Stormblood might be more confident to try Savage and Shadowbringers, for example. That it's really good to like see more people get into that, but at the same time, Ultimate is a very good necessary evil for the game. It's very good for the game, like, because you get thousands and thousands of people curious about what the hardest content in this game is, still chasing a world first for like a week or two at a time, and even beyond that, okay, they didn't get world first, but they're still trying to clear it, and like, it's good for the game because like when UCOB and especially Uwu were like in world first races, they were all over Twitch, thousands and thousands of people like Mr. Happy and Tate and Miztech were getting like double, triple their viewers that they normally get, even playing 14, even doing Savage Raids. Like, when Ultimate was out, it was a big freaking deal, which is really good for the game, because you get thousands of eyes on your game at any given time. Right. Then it's going to, it's essentially free word of mouth. It's free advertising. And why they didn't do a third one is, like, it gives the top-tier players something to do when Savage Raid just inevitably grows stale. Because, like, when you're that good at the game or in that good of a static, Savage Raiding just eventually becomes a farm, and then, yeah. Like, the static I was in was pretty mid-core for the most part, and when we had O3 relatively consistently, it just like, okay, we got our clears for the week, I guess we'll see you next week, And then, oh, we all got all our equipment, see you next tier in a few months, Whereas Ultimate is a chase, and it's a slow burn marathon.
Yeah.
And people that can knock out Savage in 8 weeks and then stop for like 2.5 months or whatever, stop for every other week until like they're gonna poke into the Alliance raid, I guess, but they already outgear it, so they don't need it. They're just gonna do it because content. And then the next Savage raid comes out, and then 8 weeks and they're done again, So, like, Ultimate was really good to keep, like, the actual high-end players invested in the game. And I really, really hope that we get more Ultimates and Shadowbringers just for that reason. They are fun as hell to watch. Am I forgetting anything from Stormblood as a whole? Because I didn't do much in the way of Beast Tribes. Crafting Gathering has never been my forte.
Yeah, same with Hildebrand.
Yeah, honestly, I need to, like, do that still. Because apparently there's a trial in it now.
I still need to do Heavensward Hildebrand.
I need to finish ARR Hildebrand, and then go through Heavensward and then Stormblood.
Maybe I'll use Heavensward Hildebrand to level Gunbreaker, like Heavensward Hildebrand, and like just Heavensward quests, Stormblood quests.
Maybe. It's not, like, Hildebrand isn't exactly good for EXP, but...
Well, no, but I haven't done very many sides, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And I was saving them to level up another job, so...
Well, you got 2 new ones.
There we go. I also have 13 old ones, but that's besides the point.
job-wise, Red Mage is flawless in every way. I'm not going to go too deep into job balancing because that's like meta, and because the meta pretty much only applies to speedrunning Savage Farm, the meta does not matter. It's one thing that's always been good about 14. And some people complain like, oh, well, I kind of want to be penalized for using this job. No, because some people can't play to levels like a bunch of different jobs, but still want to dip into rating. I don't think gatekeeping is the last thing any MMO needs ever. That any job and any job comp is viable is a good thing for the game.
Yeah.
Low floor is not bad for the game. I don't care. Gatekeeping is bad and dumb, and I would love to like have a magic ray beam to fire at the collective of Reddit. Like the perspective gun from Hitchhikers, I think?
Maybe?
I don't remember. I watched some movie where they had a gun where it's like, you know, you understand the other person's perspective after firing it or something. You fired it and they understand your point of view. I want to say that's Hitchhikers. I could be wrong.
Yeah, that's Hitchhikers.
I would like that.
Gun.
Point of view gun, that's it. I would like that loaded with gatekeeping is bad and fired at collectively the internet, but you know, that's just me.
Oh, that's why it didn't ring a bell. It's only in the 2005 movie.
Okay, that's like, I haven't read Hitchhikers.
You should. It's really good.
I haven't seen the movie, but I actually read it.
Classic literature at this point.
But yeah, like, I'm not gonna go deep into job balancing. Machinist and Dark Knight were really messy, and there's always one or two jobs that just get left behind every expansion. Paladin in Heaven's Ward, White Mage in Heaven's Ward, and in Stormblood was Machinist by a lot, and Dark Knight was just a mess to play, and then there were a couple others. Red Mage is perfect, and I'm glad they're not breaking it.
I'm really glad with what they're giving to Paladin. Just like more spells, gap closer.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited to be able to play Dark Knight without having to play DDR.
A capstone that's actually, you know, usable.
Well, not every job has had a cap. It's not like Paladin's the only job that never got a good capstone, but...
That's fair.
But, yeah. It's just... You know, the job balance was... It was ultimately, like... You know, it sucked for Machinist and Dark Knight mains, even though Dark Knight was in the world first for both ultimates. So, you know, that's how you know meta is just out the window. The guy who played Dark Knight for UCOP was like, I don't know, Dark Knight seemed fun and my group needed a tank. I'll try it out, I guess. I like Dark Knight. That's why I did the hardest thing at the time was, and world first did it, yeah. But I'm excited that I'll be able to, like, reasonably actually play Dark Knight this expansion. Ultimately, the jobs are pretty nice. What they added and changed for the most part was pretty good, except Machinist got shafted, like, really hard. But... yeah. I can't think of anything else. Anyone have... like, let's get everybody's closing thoughts for Stormblood specifically. One at a time, obviously. Drakilax, what are your closing thoughts on Stormblood as a whole?
As a whole, I still liked it. Like, despite all its flaws, it was still like a pretty entertaining romp.
Is that it?
Get to go. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have like that many that much to say. Like as just overall thing.
Right.
But like I like the dungeons. Really like the solo instances. Y'shtola EX was pretty good.
Oh, yeah. I forgot to mention that when I was going through the plot. The solo instances where we got RPG mode is what the devs officially call it, with Alfino, and then Y'shtola, and then Hien. Were all really well done. And
that too.
Like the solo instances alone really set off FF14 as being deserving of its place as a numbered Final Fantasy. Like I wouldn't mind, and obviously because of how well it's received, we're gonna get more of. But I would like to see more of the RPG mode going forward, and I know we're going to. Just, you know, it's really cool. Fang, closing thoughts?
Well, my closing thoughts are probably going to be a little different because I joined in Stormblood, so I don't really have Heavensward or ARR to compare it to, at least like back when they were current.
Yeah.
Like I obviously played through the story and I love the story, and I obviously love the Heavensward story the most because just that particular theme just resonates with me the most.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, overall, fantastic game. Love it. And I enjoyed it a lot. I love every minute of Final Fantasy XIV that I played.
Yeah, we wouldn't be here otherwise.
Yeah.
Amatsu?
A lot of my thoughts are actually in line with everyone else's here, that while the pacing had its issues and the plot was a little over the place with everything, it was still a really, really good expansion. Like, every update to the game is gold practically, with very little to actually complain about, unlike many other games I've played over the years. And I'm really looking forward to Shadowbringers as such, because the devs have proven time and time again that they will bring quality, good content.
Mm-hmm.
But I do wish they did things a little bit better, and hopefully they learned a lot of lessons this time around to make Shadowbringers all the better.
I'm hoping so too, because we haven't gotten... Every MMO has a bad expansion that they have to recover from.
And this could be its bad expansion, and it was still good.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, to be fair, 1.0 was kind of the bad expansion.
No, but I mean, like... Yeah, but at the same time, every MMO has, like, a bad expansion after a successful launch.
That's fair.
So, like,
also, rest in peace, 7 Falkleys.
yeah. Rip. Oh yeah, like, rip half of the skill buttons, by the way. They took out, like, half our buttons. So, when we get Totorak, we're gonna have a button.
Oh.
Oh god.
One thing I hope that we get in one expansion or another, and I think they've talked about doing this a couple times but haven't really done much since. I really, really, really hope that one day they just let us have our buttons in lower level content. Cause like it'll make less of a chore for leveling roulette, or segregate lower level leveling roulette. Like give us 1 to 50 and then like a 51 to 60, 61 to 70, 71 to 80 leveling roulettes. Or give us our buttons in low level content. Because, like, I would hate Sastasha and Totorak and Tamtara a lot less if I had more than 2 buttons.
Yep.
Alright. Pretty much my closing thoughts are basically the same. Like, I pretty much gave my opinion on the plot, like, as it was, and everything else. I pretty much know what I hope for. I'm just glad Red Mage isn't being completely broken in Shadowbringers. Stormblood was really good because it finally got me to, like, open up and actually try content where I didn't in Heavensward, either from lack of group, lack of friends, or just not wanting to, like being intimidated off by content. Especially considering Alexander Savage was killing a lot of statics by how bad it was, just badly designed. But, like, Stormblood was a little bit more solid on the raid front, even though a lot of people complain about lowering the floor because gatekeeping. But Stormblood got me to, like, actually try things that I didn't before, and I feel like I've gotten a lot better at the game over the last 2 years than my first 2. But the game has room for improvement. It's obviously I'm still addicted because I've never missed a month of sub, even, like, during my hiatuses and breaks from the game. But obviously I love the game very much, or else I wouldn't have been subbed to it since, like, 3.1. You can look up the dates yourself. I'm too lazy. Don't do it right now. But, like, you know, I love the game very much. It deserves its place as a numbered Final Fantasy from someone who's played Final Fantasy for a quarter a century. I still hold true that it deserves its place as a numbered one, and is still a fantastic game. Just, you know, the expansion could have been better, but it could have been 1,000 times worse. So ultimately, that's kind of where I'm leaving it at. People in the audience, viewers, what did y'all think? Feel free to leave comments. Smash that like button, sunglasses. Like my Facebook and my yearbook and my Twitter and my Twitch and my my MySpace. Go. None links will never exist ever. But
MySpace still exists.
Apparently,
Coming never to a theater near you.
pretty much. But yeah, what did everybody else think about Stormblood? Feel free to, let a discussion happen and tell me what you thought of the expansion. Longtime players, first-time players, people who are just getting in for Shadowbringers. Hopefully, actually, if people are new, I hope they didn't watch because we've been spoiling all of the current plot.
Sorry, viewers.
Maybe we should preface this with warning: massive spoilers ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that, I think. But yeah, let us know what you thought. And yeah, it's been Around the Campfire for June 2019. Next month, I have no idea because I'm winging it. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Love your faces and peace.